Alrighty, so last night I made another batch of levain starter. I took the whole chef, everything that was in this container, dumped it into this container with, 6 ounces of flour, okay? And now what I'm going to do, we're gonna make sourdough. Sourdough is cool. It requires an extra day of fermentation. So what I need is 8 ounces of this levain starter, 8 ounces of flour, and 8 ounces of water. And we're going to let that ferment in this container for 24 hours. And that is going to add to the tang. So I just need to get myself 8 ounces of this. And then once I do that, once I get the 8 ounces separated, I'm going to feed the chef back, like I'm going to put the chef back in that, that's 8 1/8. So basically I'm going to take the balance of all this, what you see here in this big container, I'm going to take the balance of that and I'm going to feed it. So see, I've got my 8 ounces, perfect. So now I'm going to take all what's left of this, throw it back in this container, feed it, and then throw that in the fridge because that's my chef for the next time I want to make bread. So I'm going to cut the video for right now. Okay, so here we go. So I've got 8 ounces of my levain starter, and that's going back into this large container. And I'm going to combine that with 8 ounces of water, and that's spring water. And I'm going to stir that up and break it down until it's a smooth, very smooth. And then I'm going to add the flour in. So let me stir this up and get it all broken down. And then after that, I'm going to add the flour. I'll show you what that looks like. And then this ferments overnight for a full 24 hours. And then tomorrow is when we start making the bread dough. Okay, let's take a look at what we've got, right? You see it's all broken up, right? You can see inside there, it's all dissolved, right? I mean, there might be a couple of small chunks. It's a little bit frothy, it's all dissolved. It smells great. And now I'm going to add in 8 ounces of the regular bread flour, not the 20% bran flour. And this is, again, from Dan Leader's book, Bread Alone. And this is his San Francisco sourdough recipe. So I've done this before. It's a nice sourdough. It's not super, super sour, but it does have a nice tang. And right now what we're making is the poolish for the sourdough. Now the biggest challenge I have is my house is going to be around 70 degrees. And it would be ideal if this would ferment overnight at about 74, 75 degrees. So what I might do, see it's looking like a firmer dough now, but this is going to be the beginning of the poolish for the sourdough. So, and also you notice how we add more of there's less of the chef in here and more flour, which means it's going to be a lighter color dough also, which is going to be nice. But my challenge is that my house is not warm enough to get the proper fermentation. What I might do is for a couple of hours, I might just pop it in a warm oven and get it a little bit warmer just to accelerate that process. But again, I don't want, I want to just follow the guideline, which is, 24 hours. And after 24 hours, we're going to take this poolish and start forming the dough. Alrighty, so we're making the sourdough. So this is the poolish that we made. It's supposed to sit 24 hours. Oh my God, it smells so good. We let it sit a little bit longer because there was stuff going on. So it's been probably 27 hours. So it's maybe a little bit weaker than it's supposed to be, but it's still lively. But you see it collapsed a little bit. And I'm gonna take all of that, right? So that was 8 ounces of levain and 8 ounces of spring water and 8 ounces of flour. And we let that ferment. And you see it's quite sticky, right? You see how I'm having a hard time getting it out of the container. But this is gonna be fantastic. All right, now, the next step to this, once I get it all out of the container, is going to be, I might pause that video, so I don't waste people's time. But anyhow, so I'm getting all of that out of the container, and we're going to add to it 16 ounces of water, a tablespoon of fine sea salt, and I have here, it said 27 to 32 ounces of flour, and this is the regular bread flour. I've got 32 ounces in here. That's 2 pounds of flour. So this is going to make 2 sourdough loaves, and they're going to be probably 1.5 pounds each, right? I mean, yeah, these are going to be pretty big loaves, but we're going to divide the dough, not like the pan au levain we did last time. This is going to be divided into 2 separate loaves. If I wanted to, I could make it into 4 loaves, make them smaller. And maybe that would be something nice, right? Because then I have smaller loaves. I can freeze a couple. Wow, that's taken me a long time to get out of there. Anyhow, so I'm going to pause the video for now, and then we're going to come back with the next step. So here I've got 8 ounces of spring water, and now I'm going to get myself another 8 ounces. So that's going to be 16 ounces of spring water. And I'm going to dissolve this poolish, and then we're going to start making the dough by adding in the sea salt and the other flour. So I'm just going to break this up, and then once it's all broken up, we're going to proceed with the dough. Oh, this is going to be a very nice sourdough. So just showing you how it's breaking up, right? I'm going to dissolve this completely so there are no more strands, or there are very few little chunks. And then after that, we're going to start making the dough. And then we're going to knead that dough and let it proof a couple of times. And then we're going to bake it. And we're going to have sourdough today. Alrighty, so you see I've got it all dissolved, and you see how nice it looks, and it smells wonderful. I've got my salt here, but I'm not going to put the salt in just yet. I'm first going to get a little bit of flour in and start mixing it. It's still going to be fairly liquid. Start mixing it, and when it's too much for the bowl, that's when I'll turn it out onto my tabletop and then start kneading it. And this shouldn't take very long. Okay, so now you see it's starting to thicken a bit, right? So now is when I'm going to add that salt. And the reason I'm going to add it now is so that it's mostly liquid. It's easier to distribute it across everything, right? It's much easier to get that salt distributed. It's just a tablespoon of sea salt. And let's make sure I get all of it in there. Yep. Perfect. Okay. And that's funny. That was the Penzeys salt that I purchased. I started purchasing this Pacific sea salt, and then they didn't have it the last time I purchased. So I wound up with that fancy gray salt, which, it's nice. I don't know that it's any better or worse than the other sea salt that I was buying. But as long as it's fine sea salt, that's all that matters for this, right? Because when it's a finer salt, it dissolves faster. And, oops, so I got a little bit on me. That's okay. Alrighty, looks like it's thick enough to put it onto that board, huh? Why don't we do that? So, I'm just going to put a little flour down on the board. Pull my spoon out. Let's pull this out now and start working it. It's going to be too sticky, obviously, to start kneading, but I don't want it so sticky that it's hard to get it out of the bowl either, right? So we're going to start working it with my pastry knives, and then once it's firm enough to work with, I'll start kneading it. I want to get all of it out of there though, right? I don't want to waste it. I guess it's okay if I can't scrape it all out, but you know, spend all this time making bread, I don't want to leave any on the table. All right, that's good. So let me throw a little bit more flour on top of that. And we'll start working it this way, just to get that flour incorporated. Wow, I'm messy today, aren't I? Very messy. Oh, thank goodness Leia's not home. She won't be able to come in here and look at the mess I'm making, and I'll have it all cleaned up before she gets home. So you see how it's starting to form, but you see how it's still very sticky. Yeah, that's crazy, huh? All right, well, and that's why we added the flour. Get it off my fingers. And you know, I don't need to bore you with all of this mixing. Let's tune in when I get it to a better state. Alrighty, so you see how it's taking shape, right? It's not quite there yet. I still have, it's still a little bit wet. I'm incorporating flour little by little. And, you know, I want to make sure that it's not a sticky dough. This should be a drier dough, even a little bit drier even than the one I did last, the pan au levain. But not, you know, dry. So I'm just working it, and you see how nice it's coming. And after this, what we're going to do is we're going to weigh it, because I think what I want to do, even though it says divided into 2 loaves, I think I'm going to divide it into 4 loaves. And the reason for that is having 4 smaller loaves is nicer for the freezer. Plus, if I want to give one away, I can give a whole loaf away instead of cutting one in half. It doesn't look as nice, right? When you give somebody a half a loaf, they're like, oh, I'm only getting a half a loaf. See how it's getting sticky? That's okay, because look, I still have plenty of flour from that 32 ounces. And I suspect that I'm going to use all of it on this loaf. I suspect I'm going to use the full 32 ounces. So I'm going to shut the video off now. Next time you see it, it'll be the final dough. It is a very nice dough though. Look at that, right? See how it's, I mean, I'm pushing hard on it, right? I'm just pushing hard and working it. And I think we're at the next step. I think we are at the next step. So I'm going to stop this, oil the bowl, and let it do its rise, its first rise. All right, so I've got my bowl oiled. I'm going to put it on top of my scale. This way I can weigh this dough in one step. All right. I'm going to pick it up. It's still a little bit sticky, but it's not sticky. I'm going to pop it in there. And it is 4 pounds, 4 1/4 ounces. 4 pounds, 4 1/4 ounces. All right. So now I'm just going to roll it into a ball. And cover that with plastic. And then let it rise for, I think it said rise for 2 hours. I'll double check that. Alrighty, so here we go. I'm going to cover it with a little plastic. And I'm going to then throw a towel over it to keep it dark. And I think I'll leave it right here. And let me double check on the amount of time. Okay, so 2.5 hours. So I need to ferment this for 2.5 hours, then punch it down, and then wait a half hour, then punch it down again, wait a half hour. So this is going to be a process. Okay, so this is 2.5 hours. And you see it looks perfect, right? I could feel from the bowl that it's warm. So what we're going to do now is we're just going to punch it down, right? I'm just going to lift it up on either side and let's deflate it, right? Just going to deflate it and we're going to let it sit for, see how it just collapsed? We're going to deflate it and cover it back up and give it another 30 minutes. And I will say what I did was, because it's only 72 in the house, right? And the instructions say between 74 and 80. So what I did is I warmed up the oven just a little bit and I let it sit in there so it's warmer than it is in the house. So you see I've just collapsed it. I'm going to put the plastic back over the top. I'm going to give it another half hour. I'm going to set a timer for half an hour. And I'm not going to put it in the oven this time. I'm just going to let it sit here. And then after half an hour, we're going to roll it out again. I'm going to kind of knead it. And then put it on a board with a little flour and let it rest another 30 minutes. Then we're going to shape the loaves. So, yeah, you know what? Before I do that, why don't we get a picture of it also? Okay, after that last half hour, this is the dough again. Okay, and what I'm going to do now is put a little light sprinkle of flour on the table here. And I'm gonna, look at that, look at those strands. Oh, I might need my scraper to get the rest of that out of there. Okay. Okay, so it says to, I'm going to just put a little bit of flour. It says to knead it lightly and then roll it into a ball. Pull these sleeves up. So I'm just going to knead it a little bit, roll it into a ball, and put it onto a lightly floured board. And then I'm going to put that in a warm place for another half hour. So basically I've just kind of deflated it, right? Oh my, I gotta tell you something. Just messing with it like this, it smells so good. Okay, so this is what we're gonna do. Put it aside. I've got a little board here. I'm going to just sprinkle. Wow, I wish I could have sprinkled a little nicer there. Okay. And now I'm gonna, let's see if I can do this. The camera's not looking at it though. Hold on. Okay, I had that issue the other day where I was rolling it and you couldn't see what I was doing. Okay, so now I've rolled it into a little ball. I'm gonna put it down. You see it's a little bit sticky, huh? That's okay though. And now, I'm not gonna use that plastic again. It said use a damp towel, so I'm gonna dampen one. Okay, so that's not wet, it's just damp. Cover that up, and I'm gonna put that in a warm place for half an hour. And that's it. And then we go to the next step. Okay, so as I said earlier, what I want is 4 1-pound loaves instead of 2 2-pound loaves, because it's going to be easier to store. So I'm just going to cut a slice of this and hope for the best. That's 10. 12. 15. Okay, 1 pound. 3/8. I remember it was 4 pounds, 4 ounces, right? So that means I can make each of these a 17-ounce loaf, right? So I'm basically just trying to get 17 ounces onto here. Perfect. Okay. So let me divide this into 4 parts, and then we're going to shape them into loaves. I don't need to bore you with those details, but you see what I'm doing here. And then also, I don't know if I want to make round loaves or torpedoes, but we're gonna figure that out. Okay, so I think. Let me flour this sheet. I think I can make 4 round loaves. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to bunch that there, there, and there. And this is going to be my couch. Right? I'll put a little flour, more flour down. Okay. Okay. And I'm just going to form a nice ball, and I'm going to do it seam side up so that when I roll it off the couch, I'm going to roll it so that it's seam side down onto the stone. And then I'll bake 2 at a time. Maybe I could bake all 4 at a time, but I don't know. That's kind of aggressive. I don't know if I'm that professional. Okay, but basically, it's seam side up, right? Just pinch that shut. And then the bottom side that you see that's under, when I roll them off the couch, that side is going to be the top side on my peel. I think that's going to be perfect, right? Yeah. All right, I'll give a little sprinkle on top so they don't stick. Oh, Jesus Christ. Well, you know, that's me. I'm a clumsy guy, right? Saw that. You saw it. I did it. I think we're okay. Okay. And now, put them into focus, right? You see what I've done here. I've separated them. And now these guys are going to rest for an hour. And I'm just going to warm up the oven. I think in about 15 minutes I'm going to turn that oven on so that it's good and hot, and we're going to bake these puppies in about an hour. Okay, so it's time to bake, and what's going to be tricky is to get these. I'm going to do 2 at a time, right? So what I'm going to do is try to get 2 of them onto the peel at the same time. So I'm going to try to delicately roll one off. Oh, look at that. Nice. Okay. So let's get that into the frame. All right, that looks good. Okay, now I don't want so much flour on it, so I'm gonna try to pull some off. And let's see if I can move it just a little bit. Okay, these are both going to go in. Let's give them a little score. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. And let's pop them in the oven, shall we? So there they are in the oven, and they're going to do great. Okay, here they are. So this is 2 of them, and the other 2 I just took out. So that's it. This is the San Francisco sourdough. Now check this out. You hear that? They're done. And they got a nice hard crust on them. I gotta let them cool, and then we're gonna taste it. It's gonna be awesome. I should have said it like that. That sounds silly, doesn't it?